Hey everybody, this is Amazing Fantasy Football. I am Josh, and over there is the Niles Calder to my Cliff Steele.
Chris.
That's right, Chris. That's right. I started watching Patrol. That is from Doom Patrol on HBO
Oh,
Max.
how is it?
I've only two episodes in, so don't ask me how the show is.
How's the show?
Well, I told you not to ask me that, but thanks for asking. How you
How
doing
you,
tonight, Chris?
I'm doing pretty great. It's Saturday night. Life's good. What's not to love? We're doing a fantasy show, and it's amazing.
You know what's not to love? That this person will not make their freaking pick, and then the next guy after him make the pick, so I can make my pick. And that's yeah, we're doing our slow emphasis on the slow draft of our dynasty league, the rookie draft. It's going very slow. So yeah, we're here to talk about players and situations we like and don't like. Chris, we didn't talk about this beforehand, but I think there's a bit of news that should probably be addressed. Jerry
Uh,
Jerry Judy was
oh yeah,
arrested
yeah,
the other day
yeah.
for, forgive me, it was more or less a domestic enhancer, is what they call domestic violence enhancer. More or less, what happened, from what I can tell, is that Jerry Judy's baby mama wanted to get her stuff and leave and move back home to where she's whatever state she's from. He wasn't letting her, so she called the cops. He was released from jail, and she right now is just saying she wants to drop the whole thing. All she wanted to do was just get her stuff. That's all she wanted. The cops, she accomplished that. That's all she wanted. She didn't want him to go to jail, nothing like that. I don't think anything's going to come out of it, but it's news, and I thought it was going to actually, like, by anything, I mean, I don't think any suspensions or anything. It wasn't, there was no property damage. He didn't lay a finger on the lady, thankfully. And I think we can just move on with it. What do you think, Chris?
Sounds about right. I don't think that should or would or warrant even a one game suspension.
Right.
So I
I
think we're
don't
okay.
think so either. Was it a domestic dispute? Yes. Was it and I don't know all the details, but from the way every report that I read made it sound, is that there was absolutely no violence in it, and nothing was damaged. So the cops just got involved so that she could, like I said, so she could get her stuff and leave.
Yep.
That's all that she wanted. That's what she got. She didn't want to get the police involved, but she had to do something. Moving along, we are talking about players and situations we like and don't like. Some of ours align, some of ours, and sometimes we have some different ones. Chris, would you like to get it started, or you want me to?
I would love to get it started with my first love slash like a lot. No.
You're in deep
uh,
like with them. Got it.
yeah. And this is one where we overlap a little bit, so you'll get to jump right in there too. The New York Jets quarterback and kind of slash O-line situation here. For a reminder, folks, they were pretty much without Mekhi Becton, their high draft pick from the year before, so 2020. Played very
First
well in
round
his
pick.
first year, first round pick, very well in his first year. Got hurt very early in 2021.
Mm-hmm.
And so basically they were without them all year. They did finish 11th as far as PFF is concerned. So, those are PFF
It's
rankings.
not bad.
If Mekhi Becton is healthy, I would say watch out. Josh has got a little bit more to speak on their running game here in a moment. But I think they've done everything they possibly could for Mr. Zach Wilson to either shine or poop the bed. Quite, I think it's going to be one of those years, and I think as a franchise and or a dynasty manager of parts of the Jets offense or Wilson himself, that you're going to get you're at least going to get an answer. That's one of the beautiful things about play. The product on the field is you usually end up getting an answer one way or the other, who the more talented, or if the person is talented enough. So I just wanted to say I like their moves they made in the draft. A lot of the draft beatniks are really high on their moves. Hey, when you get what ended up being 3 first round picks, and then Brees Hall was very high in the second. When you get that many
Mm-hmm.
picks that early on, I mean, you should get very highly ranked post draft. So I've been kind of following Mekhi Becton a little bit in my research. I like what I'm seeing in terms of a big man moving fluidly. But it's been a long time coming. He had a knee injury that was supposed to be like a month, maybe 6 weeks, and he's still rehabbing, is what the GM said the other day. So on one hand, the GM said he's still rehabbing in May. I believe it was a May interview, if memory serves. And on the other hand, I like what I'm seeing in terms of he looks slim for a 350-pound dude, 360-pound guy.
He's
So
a
we'll
big
see.
man.
Yeah, that run game could really take off. And I liked Elijah Moore last year. I got the right last name this time. And they added somebody else this year, right? Josh, please refresh my memory with
Garrett
past.
Wilson.
Yeah, Garrett Wilson, my number one receiver. So that's all I have to say about.
And they also added CJ Uzama too from the Bengals, the tight end. And I'm not a huge Uzama fan, but the guy was
Serviceable.
usable at times in fantasy last year when he was with the Bengals too.
Yep.
So, I mean, to more or less put a an ending on your statement here is that I mean they and I'm sure you were about to say this. They did everything they could to give Zach Wilson the tools to
Yep.
succeed. One of those things was also to draft Brees Hall, which you mentioned. I believe the Jets leapfrogged two teams, and I think it was the Falcons for sure. I think the other one was the Seahawks. Two teams that kind of needed a running back. And I liken Brees Hall to Jonathan Taylor in a sense that I'm not saying he's Jonathan Taylor or he's as talented, but in the sense that the Jets did something very similar to the Colts did early on in the second round. They saw a chance to go after a guy that they probably didn't think was going to be available to them or be within reach. They kind of put some feelers out to make a small little jump up in the second round to get a running back that could really help boost their game. And so that's one of the reasons why I'm in love with all the Jets running backs named Michael Carter and Brees Hall, not Tevin Coleman. Tevin Coleman he's like a guy, he had one pretty good year in Atlanta and hasn't done anything since. I don't know if Brees Hall is going to be the year one contributor that, maybe Chris hopes him to be, because Chris just took him as the 101 in our Dynasty rookie draft. But I think I wonder, Chris, I've been thinking about this a lot in the last week. I'm sorry this is a bit of a tangent here, but think about all these running backs that came into the league that weren't exactly year one contributors. You got your Jonathan Taylors. Austin Eckler was certainly not a year one contributor. I am basing on all the other ones that I have.
Derrick Henry.
Maybe you want to edit this out. What?
Derrick Henry.
Derrick Henry was another one. Joe Mixon wasn't exactly a year one contributor either. David Montgomery. I'm not saying David Montgomery's elite, but in year one, he wasn't all that great. But now he's pretty good fantasy back, pretty good back for the Bears. Dalvin Cook, I'm pretty sure he was competing with not Adrian Peterson, someone else. Anyways.
Oh, Dalvin Cook. Yeah. Not Peterson, somebody else.
But I mean, anyways, all these guys, and if I didn't say Jonathan here, like they are kind of eased into their NFL roles in year one, and then year two, boom. I mean, there's guys like Zeke. Year one was great. Don't get me wrong, and Saquon Barkley. Year one was great. Haven't seen much from Barkley since, but you know what I'm saying. There are running backs that come in. Maybe Brees Hall is one of those guys. Not this year, but I do like Michael Carter. He led the team in rushes last year with, I believe it was 169. It wasn't a lot, but the Jets only had, it was 318 rushing attempts from the running backs last year. Why was that, Chris? Because their defense was terrible. Their offense in general their team wasn't very good in general, but mainly their defense. They were behind very early in games, and they needed to throw the ball to keep up. I think that Michael Carter he's a smaller back, but I think he's a guy that can help carry the load. And if you get Brees Hall in there and he comes in and be the running back that we all think that he can be, he can easily start, unfortunately, cutting into Michael Carter a little bit. I just think that like Michael Carter, he's the RB29 last year. So, is he going to be a top 24 back this year? Probably not. But, for a guy that you can maybe use here and there throughout the year, maybe in some spot starts, I think, you could look for Michael Carter there. What do you think, Chris?
I think one of the reasons I was willing to move the pieces I moved to get up to the 101 to take Brees Hall was the fact that all the pieces they put in place to benefit Zach Wilson obviously help a running back in Breece Hall and or Michael Carter, pass catching options, etc. All all tides raise all ships, as the saying goes.
Yep.
So even if Zach Wilson falls on his face next year, sure, it'll hurt my dynasty team. I get it, because Breece Hall probably won't be that darn good either. But if they get a guy in, if they get a vet or a rookie in the next year, this team is built pretty well. And I think that's the point we're both trying to make here.
Yep. One last question for you, Chris. Like redraft league, I know it's real early, and I'm not going to ask you to put a rank on Zach Wilson, but if you were like really waiting on quarterback, is he one of those guys that maybe you take a late round flyer on to have to start the year as your starting QB?
I mean,
maybe
I'm not the kind of guy. If I wait that long, I probably might better take two. So I would put him below the, I guess you could say, the perennial, Cousins, maybe Ryan,
outside of a top 12.
Yeah, outside the top 12. Yes.
Oh, okay, yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm constantly drafting.
I hope I'm wrong.
In redraft, I'm constantly drafting him super late, so he might. I mean, I don't know who Zach Wilson's week one opponent is, but I mean, if it's a juicy matchup on paper, I might draft him as my starting quarterback in a redraft league.
We both liked him reasonably well coming out. Yes, Fields was my 2. I assume Wilson was your 2. I don't recall. Behind Lawrence, kind of the typical. So yeah, I hope I have high hopes
Davis
for him.
Mills.
No, it wasn't. But I know you like
Jones.
I know you like Mills now, but no revisionist history here, folks.
Hell of a neck.
So is that me up now, since you?
What's your next situation, man?
Finished? Okay, so I'll go with my next positive situation, my next love, as it were. The Chargers backfield. Just a reminder, they picked guard Zion Johnson, number 17 overall. In round 4, they took another running back, number 123 overall, Isaiah Spiller out of A&M. I think the Chargers are going to go for a more balanced attack. Yes, they're still going to throw a ton. They were like second in yards behind just Tampa, in passing yards. Second in passing yards behind Tampa. Top 5 in total yards. Just Tampa, Dallas, LA Chargers. I mean, just your typical 3, 4, 5 top offensives. They weren't as balanced as I think they'd like, especially getting in, kind of the tough yards, if you will. So I think they want a more balanced attack throughout the season. And these two guys, Isaiah Spiller and Zion Johnson, are going to help supplement what, of course, Eckler and Herbert and the pass catching options are already doing, at a pretty good rate. We know their defense can be elite, and they have really shored up their O-line with the likes of Rashawn Slater 2 years ago. I think this is his second year. Corey Linsley, a veteran, the vet free agent they got from, I say a free agent, could have been a trade. A vet they got from Green Bay.
It was a free agent signing.
I thought it was too. So I just wanted to touch on how I think the backfield is going to be one you want a piece of. Obviously, Eckler is, I don't know, top 5, top 12. Pick your flavor of ice cream kind of thing. He's a good running back on a good offense. He's going to catch a ton of passes. Spiller might get a decent share, and there might be a world where they can kind of both exist. I'm not saying Spiller's going to, take the world by storm in year 1, but Eckler's not long for this world, I guess. Oh, that sounded bad. That sounded like he's going to pass away. Eckler's contract is dispensable in a year or two. Let's put it that way.
Not dispensable now, but
Yeah, but on the other hand, it wasn't that expensive in terms of what you see other running backs getting,
exactly.
And he's a big part of their offense. So I think Eckler's fine this year. I'm just saying, I want a piece of their run game. I really like where their offensive line is heading, especially with Zion Johnson coming in, and they weren't that bad before. So yeah,
they were good before. They were really good.
Exactly. Yeah.
My one thing to take away from Austin Eckler and everything else is that other than last year, he has a real problem staying healthy.
Well, I think that's why it's not such a. I
think that's why they got Spiller.
Yeah, I think that's why they got Spiller and the guard Zion Johnson. I think they want to have a little bit more of a traditional
place I
More
can't
of a
remember the guy's
traditional
name.
run game. More of a traditional run game. Spell Eckler a little bit more. Absolutely, I agree with you. I just don't think it's going to be to the point of a huge detriment to Eckler's value, at least in year one, at least in this year.
Yeah, I don't think so either. Anyways, my next situation that I really like is the Detroit pass catchers. I really don't like hitching my cart to the Jared Goff horse, but I mean, dude, at one point Jared Goff had Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods as both. They were both top 24 wide receivers in fantasy football.
If I'm not
Last year,
mistaken, there might have been a. Go
last
ahead. Go
year
ahead.
down the stretch, Amon-Ra St. Brown was playing at an elite level at the end of the season.
That's
From
true.
week 13 on in PPR, he was the number 3 wide receiver down the stretch. Jared Goff was doing this.
Mm-hmm.
Jared Goff.
If I'm not
He's
mistaken,
that
Jared Goff was a former MVP candidate that year. Yeah, it only lasted about halfway through the
candidate.
season. Candidate. Yeah, candidate, of course.
TJ Hawkinson, he should be healthy by the beginning of the season. As of right now, Amon-Ra St. Brown, of course, the aforementioned, and then they also signed DJ Chark too. So, and they just drafted Jameson Williams. Now, Williams is, well, as we've talked about before, is kind of is the long play of this for the Lions. But even then, Khalif Raymond was okay. I don't really necessarily like him that much. But you also got DeAndre Swift coming out of the backfield too to catch balls as well. Not as much as maybe a lot of fantasy managers would like, but hey, I just think that Jared Goff has the tools to succeed, and the Lions have done it. They have a great offensive line, probably one of the at least the top 15, if not top 10 best offensive lines in all of football. They have a running game, maybe not the greatest, but they do have a running game. They have finally have given Goff some weapons too. And the Lions didn't do much to really kind of make Goff nervous about the competition behind him at all. Like, everyone kind of expected Detroit to take a quarterback in the draft this year. They kind of didn't. Dude, I kind of like Jared Goff. I kind of like his weapons. Now, Hawkinson, maybe he could end up being a bust, but this is year 3 for him. So, and we've kind of talked about this in the past where year 3 is kind of the make or break year for tight ends. Hopefully, being a former Hawkeye, then he succeeds. I wish the best for him, but we'll see. I'll still take Hawkinson as a top 6 tight end in most drafts. Anyways, I just wanted to say that, I think Amon-Ra St. Brown is going to go way too high for my taste in redraft.
Yeah, that's a good point actually to kind of end on there. It's yeah. I'm
and I
borderline
think
in love with the guy
is probably
too.
going to be the guy that I'm going to be looking for a lot because of just potential. I mean, he flashed in Jacksonville.
Mm-hmm.
He's had some injury problems, so but I mean, if he's going to be your wide receiver 5, 4, I mean, obviously this is way too early for redraft, but that's not a bad, I'll take that.
I liken the Jets a lot to the Lions kind of this season. Lions, I really like their draft too. They had a lot of picks again, like,
a bad team should.
Exactly. A lot of high picks, made some trades, etc. So yeah, hey, Goff or Zach Wilson, redraft 1 QB. Goff. Yeah, exactly. I put, if
he's done it before.
If we're right, I'll hitch my horse to that wagon. If we're right, like Goff, is like a Cousins again, like a 10 or 11 or 12 or 13th quarterback. Carr,
you can do it consistently.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's where
that's the real kicker right there. Because even in that year, even in what was it, 20?
It fell apart at some point. Yeah.
It kind of the wheels fell off the wagon. Why do we keep using this cart and horse metaphor? But anyways,
was it you or me?
The wheels really kind of fell off the wagon there towards the end for Goff. But he did lead that Rams team to a Super Bowl. So
yep, and he was in that MVP discussion for sure at one point.
Your next situation?
I've got a big surprise for you. Dallas Cowboys pass catchers here.
Oh my God.
To qualify this before I move on, it is a little bit of
full disclosure. Chris is a Cowboys fan. If no one ever guessed.
Well, there's that, but it's also a little bit of love-hate here with this particular analysis of the pass catchers. First and foremost, you have to mention that obviously Amari Cooper is gone. That's 104 vacated targets in 15 games, so not quite a full season, but 104 targets vacated.
Still,
Gallup Yeah, exactly. Gallup is going to be healthy during the season, but probably not at the beginning. I just for sake of mathematics, I just included his totals.
I'm saying pupless for him, but that's just
I
my
I think
guess.
I am too. But his totals last year were 62 targets and nine games. Hey, more missed time, right? Obviously, we're talking about him getting hurt, not more missed time. The same missed time, Chris. I'm just saying it could bleed into the next season. So and they did take a rookie. I did not list him because I'm going to talk about the tackle here more. They did invest into their what most folks would agree is their strength, offensive line, by drafting tackle Tyler Smith, who will probably play right guard in 2022. They don't like to move Zach Martin, the left guard, all pro left guard. Tyron Smith being, again, an all pro left tackle. You'd like to think they have a guy behind the tackles to play. Swing tackle is a big position for Dallas because Tyron Smith is hurt so much. But I like them going back to the well and getting another offensive line. You kind of want to believe in that front office when they do that. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
If Zeke can start the season healthy and maybe actually to a benefit be spelled more by Pollard to keep Zeke more fresh, more healthy. We kind of touched on that with Eckler a moment ago. That's kind of what I hope. But then again, I'm probably trying to have my cake and eat it too, being both a fan and a dynasty manager of several of those pieces. But generally, I think if you're talking a numbers game, if you're talking a fantasy game, you really want to come back full circle to those vacated targets. I failed to mention this off the top of my head. Dalton Schultz had like 120 targets last year. That's good for a tight end. So you might think he takes a step forward. That might be a piece you want to target in certain areas. I'm not super high on him big picture. I think I don't want to say he's just a guy. Go ahead,
What about
Josh.
this coming year, though?
Again, with the vacated targets, I think, yeah, absolutely. He might surpass that 120 targets. My overall point was I appreciate what they did at offensive line in the draft. Hopefully they have better health from Tyron Smith. And, I hate to make the reference again, but tide raise all ships. The running backs will be better. The pass catching options will be better.
Speaking of the pass catching options, what about CeeDee Lamb? Do you think that he's gonna finally take that with Amari Cooper gone, and boy, I'm having a bad time with names.
Michael
tonight, Chris.
Gallup, perhaps
Michael
being out
Gallup,
a couple weeks,
maybe missing a few weeks. Is that
at
really gonna just bump CeeDee Lamb up to the upper echelon, along with Justin Jefferson and your Devontae Adams from last year? I don't know if Adams is going to be quite that elite level this year on a different team, but guys like that, is he going to be a true wide receiver one this year with Amari Cooper being gone?
Yes.
What do you okay?
Both a wide receiver one for the Cowboys and a wide receiver one in fantasy. So
that's what I was talking about.
We go ahead and throw that out there. Call him a top 12 guy. I think I don't want to call it low hanging fruit because he still has to prove it. Going back to what we said about Zach Wilson, it is it's a poop or get off the pot type of year for CD because I think the moves they made say, hey, we're willing to give you the number one role. Yes, money plays into it, obviously, with Amari contract, et cetera, Zeke's overblown contract. I get it. So, but yeah, absolutely think he can do it. And I think we're going to be able to tell at the end of this year because he's going to get some double coverage. He's going to get, he's going to show a full route tree, et cetera. What about the rookie?
Yeah. Is he going to be able to, just your opinion real quick, is he going to be able to step in and maybe hopefully contribute
Year one? No, I don't think so.
Day one?
Not in fantasy. Not day one. No, not in fantasy. Okay. He might flash here and there, but I think it's more about Schultz targets go up. CD takes a step. Maybe there's some more Pollard targets in there.
My last thing. Sorry to just kind of cut you short there, but we need to get moving. My last thing is the situation I love, and this is a broad stroke here, but all the elite fantasy running backs. I love them all, and it sounds like low-hanging fruit, but just bear with me here for a second, folks. Just bear with me.
I got you.
And this is the guys that were top-level fantasy producers last year. This comes with a caveat, but if you look at Christian McCaffrey, He only has Chuba Hubbard, who was pretty uninspiring last year. Zeke has Tony Pollard, or Pollard has Zeke, however you want to look at it. But Zeke was RB6 last year. It might have been a little lame, but whatever. JT in India, he still has Naeem Hines, but the Colts didn't do anything to really give JT a run for his money. Samaje Perine and Chris Captain America Evans aren't really much of a threat to Joe Mixon. Dalvin Cook, Alexander Madison, Dalvin Cook, Alexander Madison, I don't think is much of a competition to Cook. What I'm getting at here is that all these guys, Najee Harris as well, Derrick Henry, none of these guys were ever like Brees Hall didn't go and give and is put into a position to give them any sort of threat to their touches this up and coming year. The guys that maybe that were you could look at that were elite level fantasy producers last year that did get some guys to maybe worry about. Austin Eckler. We talked about Isaiah Spiller. I'm just saying there's a potential there. I think it's more of a Spiller's going to come in to spell Eckler. I'm really glad that he didn't have an SP last name. I would have totally screwed it up. The other guy is Leonard Fournette. Chris, I know you're not a big fan of Fournette, and that's fine. You don't have to be. But he was the RB5 last year in fantasy football. The dude put up numbers.
Yeah, he was an elite fantasy back, no doubt.
Fantasy back, yes.
Mm-hmm.
I did. You made me say that, and you are absolutely 100% right. He was an elite fantasy back, but the Bucks did draft Rachaad White in the 3rd round. 91st overall, that's not nothing. Rachaad White is a do-it-all kind of back, but he's a bit of a project. He needs help with his pass protection, and he needs help with his vision while he's running, too. Pass protection is a big thing for a guy like Tom Brady, who doesn't like to get knocked to the ground because he's old as dirt. Chris, real quick, who's older, you or Tom Brady?
Tom Brady.
Oh, okay.
He's 48, 47?
He's 44, dude.
He's not 44, is he?
Yes,
I thought he was past 45.
Nope.
Well, then it's definitely me.
Oh, okay. Anyways, I knew the answer to that question. Anyways,
apparently.
But yeah, so all those guys that you thought that you envisioned as being elite level fantasy producers from last year, Christian McCaffrey obviously injured. But there's no reason why they can't do it again this year. And with McCaffrey, they did kind of beef up their offensive line a little bit in Carolina, so maybe he's going to have a little bit more success this year because their offensive line was atrocious last year. That's kind of all I had to say, but I just wanted to say I thought that was really important because the more I thought about it, I'm like, man, all these elite backs got
a lot of winners.
They kind of walked away from that draft.
I mean, on what? Yeah, exactly. Exactly. On one hand, hey, big surprise, good running backs didn't draft a immediate threat backup, but on the other hand, it's good to point out because I feel like it's a huge part of the offseason, especially when you start talking about dynasty and running backs and how hard they are to find. You got a lot of winners coming from the top 12 fantasy finishers last year. So, hey, we're not saying wash, rinse, repeat because things always happen, but it's good to point it out for your Ecklers and your CMCs and your Zekes and your et cetera. Yeah.
Chris, should we jump into our dislikes and start with the one that we overlap on?
Yes.
That would be the Miami running backs. Why don't you take us away and I'll just kind of pop in here and there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Well, speaking of low-hanging fruit, it's kind of like they just brought in Sony Michel, who has become more of a plotter, more of a kind of a quote big back. Ironically,
he's become that?
He has, because he was a scat back. He was a speedster coming out of Auburn, I think. Georgia, my bad. With him coming into town, the talk has been, what do we do here? And I think what you generally do when you're talking about murky situations, especially running back, you follow the money. But I'm not in love with Chase Edmonds either. What do you want to say, Josh?
I was going to say they brought in Sony Michel, but they also brought in Raheem Mostert and Chase Edmonds. And I'm like, they brought in a lot of guys.
Yeah, but Edmonds got the money.
It's true.
Not generally, probably beyond a shadow of a doubt, you would say he's also the pass catcher. So the moral of the story is he's the guy you want, but I want to know that price because I don't really want any of them.
I think if the price, if you had to make me choose to draft one of these guys in like the 5th round,
Gaskin's still there.
Chase Edmonds. Otherwise, I don't I don't want any of these guys. But the thing I have written down here too is that like right now I want Chase Edmonds because I think he's probably the guy that's probably going to be most likely to succeed in Miami.
Mm-hmm.
That could easily be Sony Michel come week 2, though. Like because
Week
after a
two,
week 1
week two or
performance,
week
it's just like
15, Josh. Honestly,
what
it could week 2 or week 15. Honestly, it could go either direction. I think
and
that's
correct me
why
if
we
I'm
don't
wrong here,
want.
Chris.
Yeah.
But didn't their head coach Mike McDaniel? Didn't he come from San Francisco? And
Yep.
didn't he say that he wanted to use a rotation of running backs like they do in San Francisco?
Yep.
Did he not
AKA
say something like that?
AKA they seem to always have a health problem with their running backs. AKA
Yeah.
ride the hot hand. AKA running back by committee. AKA I don't know. I mean, pick the
AKA
guy.
fantasy nightmare.
Yeah, exactly. Don't forget Gaskin. About 2 years ago now, because I don't think it was so hot last year, but he was a producer, and I got on him, I guess you could say early, but I was also had this realistic expectation in the back of my head that this guy is not long for this roster. Like, he has done nothing to separate himself. He I think
They still got Malcolm Brown, who at times flashed for the Rams when he was
I think
there.
if you put the
Salvin
right guy back
Ahmed,
there,
it has
yeah.
flashed for the Dolphins as well in the
Yep.
past, like
And he's
just a
still
game
there.
here or there.
I think he's still
Yep.
there. Yep.
Jared Dokes, and also someone called Zaquandre White, who I don't know who that guy is, but I love his name.
That's my
I love his
sleeper.
name.
No, I'm just kidding. I have no idea.
Yeah, right. I found it. I found it. I'm like, there's other guys on this depth chart. So I'm like, Zaquandre. I'm like, I don't know who you are, but that is a baller name, Zaquandre. Anyways,
Do like that.
yeah.
I do like that.
Dolphins running backs, poopy.
Yep.
Good running backs are not on the Dolphins at the moment, or bad situation.
Yeah.
Bad.
Amen to
At
that.
first, it was like Chase Edmonds went there, and then wrote Raheem Mostert, and then you're like, oh, those are kind of the same
Mostert
guy.
never really worried me, but the sticks kept piling on the fire,
Yeah. Anyways, what else? What else we got there? What else don't you like, Chris?
Let's go Raiders offensive line. What I mean by that is, and I think I've been a record saying this, if not on the show, I really like what the Raiders did this offseason. I'm not saying Adams is a plug-in, like a, how do I put it? I don't want to overplay the chemistry between former collegiate teammates in Derek Carr and Devontae Adams. However, I've always been a fan of Derek Carr's arm, his release. I think he's a good leader. Has he been the best fantasy quarterback in the world? No. Has he been the best quarterback in the world? No. But I've always held out hope that he's with the right pieces. And his coaching and situation was pretty awful year before. Yeah, beginning of last year with Gruden and all that. We'll move on past that drama. But I just think with the right cards, with the right deck, he could really have an MVP type of season and go deep into the playoffs. I think Devontae Adams is the type of piece that you need to do such a thing. I think they've got pretty darn good pass rushers and back end pass defense to help get the ball back in his hands. But they did next to nothing at offensive line, which according to PFF in 2021 was 28th. Whatever you think about PFF and their ranking system, there you have it.
Well, it's also hard to find like rankings of offensive line units.
Yeah,
they're out there.
Yeah,
but
and we talked about this off air. I think maybe where like me and you have never been the biggest. What's the running back? JJ. I just blanked. Josh Jacobs. Josh Jacobs. We've never been the Josh Jacobs fan. I knew who you were
talking about, but I figured I'd make a Spider-Man reference.
So either it's the offensive line, or maybe we're right about his talent level. All I'm saying is they didn't do a whole lot other than everything else to help Carr and the fantasy pieces there, and obviously win more games. The offensive line, they didn't really touch it. They did. Dylan Parham was a guard from Memphis. They took, and why I didn't write down where they took him, I don't remember.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah. So there's that. They tried to do that, but generally, I am high. This is a contrast. I am kind of high on the Raiders fantasy offensive pieces, but I got to see something improve on the offensive line. Maybe we can get a feel for that in the offseason, July and August.
Maybe, and offensive lines can very quickly
fluctuate.
kind of turn a corner too.
Hmm.
Like you
Hmm.
get the guys that are just like they all of a sudden gel, and I don't think that's the case here with the Raiders, but you never know, man.
That's kind of where I'm
Uh,
leaning myself. Yep.
here's I got something that I really don't like, Chris. I really don't like the Seattle wide receiver, the Seattle offense as a whole for the most part, but mainly their wide receivers, their pass catching options for the most part. And it's a little too early to be thinking about redraft rankings, but Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf are two dudes I'm really not all about at all. Like, I love me some DK Metcalf. You know I do. You know I love DK. I think he's a great wide receiver, and perhaps he is that type of wide receiver that could really help elevate a mediocre quarterback. I don't know if he can elevate Drew Lock enough to really make DK Metcalf really that
Dude,
fantasy viable
dude, I've
next
seen
year.
Randy Moss struggle with quarterbacks. You know,
Well, Randy Moss was a bit of
head
a
case
head case,
at that point in
anyways.
his career. That's fair, but you see what I'm saying?
Um,
Talent level.
yeah, I just like, and here's one thing I did find about Drew Lock that I kind of liked is that his intended air yards per passing attempt increased every year from 6.8 in his rookie to 8.8 in his sophomore season to 10.1 in the 3 games that he started last year. That is encouraging. The other thing that's encouraging about Drew Lock is that the Seahawks seem to be pretty content with him and whatever that schmo is that they picked up in free agency to be his backup. Like, I know it seems like they're kind of tanking for next year, but like they do have pieces here. They brought in Noah Fant too, so there is a familiar face for Drew Lock. But Lock and Fant never really seemed to be all that in sync that much in Denver. Part of that's because of each other's health, but when they were both healthy, it wasn't that great. I mean, much like TJ Hawkinson, former Hawkeye, wanted Fant to succeed, and he's more of a pass catching tight end than anything else. Like he's not a blocker and whatever. He's just I don't know, man. I help me out here. Am I wrong in thinking this? But I don't. The other thing I don't like about Fant too is that Seattle kind of rotates their tight ends in and out. Like I love Gerald Everett there last year,
Oh, I hate
but
them. Yeah.
but also Will Disley was getting playing time, and forgive me, I don't remember the third tight end that they had there too. And I was just like, is Everett just not that good, or is it just like no? I think it's just Pete Carroll and he just rotates tight ends in and out. You
Yeah.
know?
I think they're just willing to pay $1.5 million for a vet coming off his rookie deal that can kind of a bit of a physical
Do a little bit
specimen
of
that
everything.
exactly a bit of a physical specimen that can block well enough because they love to run the ball and
Yeah,
just
they
not.
need their tight ends to block because their offensive line has been
Yeah,
atrocious.
and if you have an offense that's not good enough, if you have an offense from a fantasy point of view that's not going to get a ton of pass volume, who's going to be one of the first people to suffer? The tight end and or
Yeah,
running backs, but yeah, there's that
yeah.
too.
I don't know, man. I Lockett's so like he's on my dynasty team, and that trade from Russell Wilson to Drew Lock, I was just like, wow. I wish I would have traded you.
Yeah, I wish you were already gone. If
Yeah.
I wish I'd have.
Hopefully, and like Drew Lock was one of those guys that he was a gunslinger in
I
college,
mean,
and
yeah,
maybe
for
it was
sure,
just
for sure.
like Pete Carroll can unlock that gunslinger mentality in him again in
Except,
Seattle.
except that he wouldn't let Russell Wilson, an All-Pro, do it. Why would he let?
Yeah, exactly. I don't know,
Yeah.
man.
Moving on with my next quote unquote hate. It's a strong word,
Whoa.
but strong word.
Yeah.
But I'm going to go ahead and
Yikes.
stick with it. Is the Panthers wide receivers / quarterback situation? What I mean by that is I've been on record being a Matt Corral guy, but I don't think it's going to start week 1. I don't necessarily think it's going to start week 7, barring injury, or week 15. I think they want to see this Darnold thing through. I've been a fan of both the head coach Matt Rule and at the time a year ago the offensive coordinator Joe Brady, who was
You
with.
just made that up. They
No, I
fired
did.
him.
Yeah, I was gonna say he's gone now. So there's that. However you may feel about that, it's not like he was terribly successful. Let's be honest there. So that's really what it boils down to is I'm just not in love with the fact that they're just going to go right back into this year. They didn't make a move in the draft to bring in, they brought in Corral, but they didn't make a move to bring in, say, Pickett or Willis or somebody. I was high on Willis in hindsight. I think maybe he's not as good as I thought he was, and NFL teams seem to feel that way. I
Prove
just
us
think
wrong, Malik Willis. Prove us wrong.
yeah, right. So I just think Corral's not going to get in there, and even if he were to get in there, he's not ready. And I don't love DJ Moore. Terrace Marshall has been non-existent. And then, of course, there's Robbie Anderson. I like the talent, I like the player, but I just don't see any
Yeah, man.
production coming through the air here. I just don't.
I mean, it started out okay last year, and we were like, "Whoa, we were wrong about Sam Darnold," and then once again, the wheels fell off the wagon
Pretty quickly.
really quick.
3,
A lot
4
of that
weeks.
was because their offensive line, and they did spend their first round pick on an offensive line, which they should have.
Yep.
I just, yeah, man, it's not looking good for the Panthers at the moment. And if you're not going to use Christian McCaffrey, why keep him on your team? Why not trade him away? Oh, that's right, because you wanted the world for him because you gave him a
you pay
giant
him
contract.
A big contract, yeah. So
I
let's
love
throw to our
CMC.
running
Don't get me wrong.
backs.
CMC is awesome. He is great when he is healthy, but he's not a big guy that can overcome a
Well,
bad
hey,
offensive line.
I was going to say, hey, going back to your point about, I think it was a receiver a moment ago. You're like, or I'm sorry, a quarterback. Do you think he's the type that can raise the talent level of all the people around him? Do you think he's the type
I
that
think
can
he did
overcome
with
bad
I
quarterback
think he
play?
can with the proper quarterback. He certainly did with what was it, Teddy Bridgewater
I
there?
think it was Bridgewater that year. I think it was Bridgewater.
Yeah,
I mean, if
that
there's
was good.
anybody,
That was good
who's
stuff.
going to dump it off, it's going to be Teddy
Dunk, dink,
Bridgewater.
dunk, 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 dink, 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 dunk. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. We'll see. I don't feel good about it.
maybe that's what they need to do with Sam Darnold. And if he's not capable of it, maybe Matt Corral.
Maybe Matt Corral
is.
Yeah, maybe he
Yeah.
is.
I don't know. I don't know.
He gets the ball out quick. We know that.
That's what you're gonna need to do when you have a bad offensive line. Last thing here. Washington running backs. The Washington Commanders running backs. Antonio Gibson left a pretty bad taste in my mouth last year, despite ending up as I believe it was the RB11.
I was going to say
RB
13.
12 last year. It was 12.
12. Got it.
Despite him being a top 12 running back, he was injured for a good part of the year, and he's not getting that passing work because of stupid JD McKissick, who they brought back.
Yep, I was just going to say that.
They matched, like, they didn't give a better offer. They matched the Bills' offer for JD McKissick. And McKissick's like, yeah, I'll come back which is very bizarre, but whatever. And then they spend a third-round pick on Brian Robinson out of Alabama. Now, I'm not sure if Brian Robinson is the bee's knees, per se, but I think a third-round pick is high enough to make me kind of scared to draft Antonio Gibson in the top 2-3 rounds next year. Everyone's going to say Gibson was hurt. No, is he going to get a lot of passing work? Probably not. But what if he does? And I'm like, well, what if Ryan Robinson's here to steal goal line work? Because that's the kind of guy he is. He's not a... What?
That's the kind of guy he is. It's so personal. That's
the kind of running back he is. Like, he's a big dude. He's kind of an upright runner, but
sorry.
He's kind of Antonio Gibson, only maybe not quite as fast. It's just. I wonder if there could just be a depth move and a reason to bring in a running back is because Gibson has struggled with a little bit of injury here and there. But I don't know, man. It could just be a rotation too. And if you're gonna rotate Gibson out even more than you already are, especially when he's not getting the passing down work, because stupid JD McKissick. Why do I want him as a top 2 run or a second round running back? Because that's maybe the top beginning of the third.
It's even scarier. You go another, let's say, year into Gibson's career, into his production, and it's whatever, okay, or whatever it was last year, and you go back and look at his college production, dude.
It's not a great.
Dude,
it's not a giant body of work.
Now there was the position change, receiver to running back. That's what a lot of people, myself included, fell in love with, and then just a size, speed specimen, just a Greek god of a man, dude. Like I bought it too, but I'm beginning to think you have to look at production. You have to.
I'm wondering if he's just more Cordero Patterson than we want him to be.
Yeah. Yeah,
You know,
and it took Cordell Patterson forever to have a fantasy viable
almost
season.
10 years.
Yeah, it was almost a whole
I mean,
career.
he had production here and there,
But
but
we're
like
not talking,
consistently.
yeah, but we're talking fantasy, not special teams and
Yeah,
spot work and all
exactly.
this BS. Exactly.
So yeah, I mean, it was just one of those things that like when like during the draft, you know, I was visiting you during the draft and the Commanders took, I can't believe I nailed that. Brian Robinson. I was like, "Ooh, that's
Kind
that's
of.
interesting." And you know,
Yeah.
honestly, in Dynasty, if you're working on your rookie draft like we are right now and you have Antonio Gibson, you might want to
You
think
might want
about
to get
using
Robinson, yeah.
you might want to think about using like a late
Late
second
second. I
for him.
was just gonna say late second. Couldn't have said it better
Yeah, you
myself.
know,
Yeah.
because why not? If you got the capital to move up back into the late second, or you are drafting late in the second, I don't have Gibson on my team, but if I did, I'm at the 212, right? No, I traded away my
Mm,
212. But if I was at the 212 still, I'd definitely be grabbing Brian Robinson just in case, you know, Gibson gets hurt because last year when Gibson was injured, it was kind of ugly
what if you're
for
not? What if you're non-Gibson manager?
I'd probably look at him in like the third or so in
Okay,
your rookie draft.
like a
You
half a
know,
round
rookie
within a
once again,
half round.
rookie dra- rookie draft,
Rookie draft. Yeah, we're not talking
third
redraft,
round.
folks. Hey, man, it's May. let's hope they caught on by
I
now.
mean, if I like obviously Brian Robinson is probably not going to be a day one starter for the Washington Commanders. It would vastly shock me if he was. He's not that kind of guy. But you know, if you're taking flyers on, you know, you need running back flyers on your team. I could think of worse ones. You know, I could think of sorry, I'm not going to go into my James Cook spiel again.
No,
I
hey,
don't understand it,
you saw what went
but
in the
whatever.
exactly. You saw what went in the second, or has been going in the second. That it's going to be cleaned out pretty soon, except for these guys that mean you like that he could maybe get in the third, fourth, and fifth. Maybe not fifth, maybe third, fourth. Like the other
Yeah.
guys, yeah, these names will go so quick, man. It's crazy. Running backs, man, gotta have them.
Let's close it out. We have been amazing fantasy football. You can check out the information down there. But you can follow me on Twitter at JoshAFFB. You can follow Chris at Amazing Fantasy 7. You can look at the show notes for links to our Discord. I have my Dynasty rookie rankings in there. I believe Chris is going to at some point.
Yes, there were some
Um,
technical difficulties. My apologies.
oh, that's right. He's ripping his computer apart.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, you know, if you're checking us out on YouTube, you can check us out in podcast format too. I find that to be a more on the go sort of thing. But if you want to just kick back and watch a little YouTube and you're on podcast format, you want to see what we look like, I don't know why you would be interested, but hey, check us out on YouTube and like, share, subscribe, leave a review wherever possible. Leave us a comment down there. It's down there, down below. Just leave a comment there. Just be like, hey, what's up? And I'll be like, sup?
Hey, agree, disagree, have a question? Please comment.
If you're in the middle of your dynasty rookie draft, good luck to all of you. We will catch you all next week.
Peace.